Okay, our first session. We are absolutely thrilled that our first Kaihautū, our keynote session, is presented by the Brown Buttabean, Dave Letele. We have had support from 2 Degrees to bring Dave to you today. Shout out to 2 Degrees for sponsoring. Gilda 2 Degrees. I'm going to be back after to have a bit of a corridor with Dave, a bit of a Q&A near the end of his keynote. Can I just tell you, you can put partai into the app. We've got people back here, they're going to see those partai, they're going to give them to me, I can ask those partai on your behalf. If you're a little bit whakama, you can shame me out. Alright? Get into it. Okay, a little bit about the Brown Buttabean, Dave Letele. When Dave Letele admitted to himself that his life had hit rock bottom, that's when his motivational journey began, reinventing himself as a prize fighter, the Brown Buttabean, as we have come to know and love him. He embarked on a fitness journey that would prove life-changing for himself and thousands of Buttabeaners. Shout out if there's any Buttabeaners in the house? A few Buttabeaners? Yeah, kia ora. From living in a sleep out in South Auckland to owning his own home and creating a thriving social environment, he tells hard truths. He motivates people to deliver great outcomes altogether. I cannot wait to hear this kai kōrero. Let's hear it for Dave Letele.
It's great to be here. I want to do a little bit of housekeeping. Also shout out to 2 Degrees for sponsoring this. Where's my clicker there? I want to do a little bit of housekeeping. I used to be a boxer. I used to weigh 210 kilos. I started my boxing career at 210 kilos. Not many boxers start their career at that weight. That was my first fight there, 168 kilos. That picture of me in the red hot pants, just a real good day. Things were perfect. For a while there I had no neck, and it was a miracle. I stopped eating rubbish, stopped drinking rubbish, I went for a walk and I grew a neck. So I will talk a little bit about my health journey, but first I want to do a bit of housekeeping. My housekeeping is marketing, okay? Everything we do in the community is free and only just funded a little bit, all right? As we all know, it's very hard, okay? These aren't free though, this is how I earn my putia, okay? So thanks again to 2 Degrees. But, so it's marketing. I want to get the sis here, Janelle, to reintroduce me as a boxer. Okay, now this can be a 40-minute talk or it can be a 40-minute workout. The choice is yours. Choice. Okay? When you hear, all of us will work out, okay? When you hear, just say, please welcome the mighty Brown Buttabean. Okay, when you say that, everybody here, stand up. Massive round of applause in the seats upstairs to everyone. Massive round of applause. I got Dana. Where are you, Dana? Dana, you're going to come over here and you're going to video it, all right? And then later on today, I'll put it up on Instagram, tag it, ulearn23, and then it doesn't matter how good I speak, it's going to look amazing. All right? Guarantees me more work. Okay? You got it? Okay. Wait till I'm back at the back. You got it, Dana? Come on stage. Okay. Action.
Please welcome the Brown Buttabean, Dave Letele. Woo!
Let's go, Tim.
Yeah!
Oh, please sit down. Sit down. Oh, you're too kind. Dana came all the way from work to record that. Thank you very much, Dana. Oh, it's always so humbling. Yeah, people always wonder, how do you get so many standing ovations? All right, look, it's great to be here. My name is Dave Letele, aka the Mighty Brown Buttabean. Some of you may wonder where I got the name Brown Buttabean from, if you're not familiar with my boxing. When I started boxing, as I said, I was 210 kilos, and there was a famous American boxer called Buttabean, who was quite, anyone remember him? He's quite a large white guy. I was a large brown guy, so they called me the Brown Buttabean. That's how I got the name. I wanted to change it, but they said, you can't. It's got brand equity. So, it's crazy. I had my first fight here. I just realized that. My first ever boxing match. I'll talk about that. But, first I'll talk about my journey and the mahi we do now. I've got to start from the beginning. I bet you didn't think you'd see a mongrel mob patch on your screen at this conference. Don't worry, team. I'm not here for recruitment, all right? That was my start. My father was the president of the Auckland chapter of the mongrel mob. So I saw a lot of stuff as a kid that a lot of, tamariki that you serve see. And I have a lot of arguments with politicians, mainly from the right, about personal choice. People always tell me, Dave, it's their choice. These lazy brown people, it's their choice. The thing about choice is it implies an equal starting point. For so many people, so many tamariki that we help, we can't even see a start line when we're born. I use a couple of examples. I'll go back so you don't have to stare at a mongrel mob patch the whole time. I use a couple of examples. I'm driving to Rotorua. I'm in the BP just past Papakura, and I'm stressed. Somehow I managed to triple book myself, and I'm trying to figure out how am I going to get out of this. I was sitting in my car, head buried in my phone, emailing, trying to get out of this. And I get a knock on my window. It's a guy there begging for money. So I get out, I talk to him. How's it going, bro? Not too good. Me, my wife, my newborn baby are sleeping in the van over there. So I'm going to help him because I can. Because I can help. If you can help, you should. If we all live this way, this country will be a better place. This world will be a better place. If you can help, you should. But first, I want to go to the van to make sure I'm not being hustled. So, I knock on the window. There's a lady there with the blanket pulled up over her head. She's so embarrassed. Her husband's begging for money. Pulls the blanket down. There's maybe a 1-month-old baby in that car. So here's the thing about choice, right? Those parents have made some bad choices to get there. But what choice does that little girl have? Zero. No choice. It'll be a miracle if that little girl can grow up to be something. Can grow up to break that cycle. How can it happen? By people who can help do. Our model in BBM is community, working alongside businesses and government for the common good. Standing together, right? That's the theme of this conference, stand together. And not just this government or the next or the one after that, all governments. Any social issue, you will find a community group there doing the mahi with next to no resource having an impact, right? Just imagine if they were resourced properly. Just imagine it, the impact that could be had. And I'll just use one more example. No, two. I don't know if anyone saw my addictions episode on TVNZ. Did you see that? It holds the record for the most swear words ever on primetime TV. So, go and watch it. It's on demand still. It's an amazing show. But there was one lady on there called Tanya. And she said to me, Dave, I come from a long line of nothing. And off camera, I went back to her. I said, no, sis, that's not right. You come from a long line of chiefs, warriors, navigators, waine, toa. That's who you come from. But she said to me, Dave, my life was pretty normal. Started getting molested from 8. That's her normal. Where's the choice? A couple of months ago, I got a cry for help from a single father of 4 on Facebook. He reached out to me. Please help. Me and my 4 children are staying in emergency housing in Epsom. We all know whose electorate that is, in Epsom, okay? In Epsom, and his 14-year-old fell through the floor because the floor was so rotten. It's in a lodge. These places are licenses to print money, making money off people's misery. So I go there, and we are all, as taxpayers, paying this place $2,500 a week for a place you would not have your dog stay in. So I go and help because I can, and I rang MSD. I have a good relationship with the Ministry of Social Development now. They said to me, before this, they said, Dave, when something happens again, can you please ring us before you go to the news? So I rang them up. I said, it's happened again. And if this family's not out of this place today, and if that place is not investigated, I'm going straight to the news. So I went there, and there's as you could expect, there's vouchers coming from every which way from Winds and trying to help them, which is good. But I go in there, and the look, it doesn't matter where you sit politically, and I try and tell these people, if you just go and see this, I believe it would change you. These people who have no, because bubbles existed before COVID where people up here don't know what's going on down here. No matter where you sit, if you go there, if you have a heart, it will affect you. You will understand how the decisions you're making affect the people at the bottom. I walk in and the kids all stared up at me. Haven't been to school since March. Can you see the cycle, right? It's going round and round and round. These kids, it's like they don't have a fucking chance. Broke my heart. They looked at me with a look of just despair and hopelessness. If you've seen that look, you know it, right? And we helped, and I said to the kids, who wants some lollies, Don't tell anyone, but that Buttabean's getting you lollies. But we went and got some lollies, and we came back, and they're all packing up their stuff. And I said to the kids, I turned to them, I said, look, I understand this is tough. This sucks. But I want you to use every bit of adversity and all of this pain and struggle you're going through as fuel to be better. It's fuel to drive you to be a success. And never forget how this system has failed you so that you never rely on it. Like those children, that was me. That was my start. My father, he was the president of the Auckland chapter of the Mongol mob. His trade was robbing banks. It's what he did for a living. My first memory of the police was when they raided my house at 3 years old and stole all my Christmas presents. It's not until later on I realised it's not stealing, it's called confiscating. But that was my first introduction to the system, right? Like a lot of kids growing up like I did, that's our first introduction to the system. And we hate the system from that day on. That's not our fault. And I interviewed Andrew Costa, the Commissioner for the Police, and I said that to them. How can you minimise the trauma on children when things like this happen? Because it's not the kids' fault. No matter what you think of the parents, it's not the kids' fault. So how can we break this cycle? My father, he went to jail when I was 5 for armed robbery, and you always get caught. I talk to a lot of at-risk children and I say, you will always get caught. It's a miracle that I'm not dead or in prison, and I don't waste that miracle. I'm here to help as many people as possible. That's what I'm here for. That's my purpose. I moved back when my father got out of jail, and I should say my parents have changed now. I always forget to say that, and people leave go, man, his parents are dicks. My parents have totally changed. They run a foundation that my sister started called Grace Foundation. Looking after people just out of prison with community housing. They have women's refuges. They have mums and bubs houses for mums who've had their children taken off them to come back and to start reintegrating back into society. Prison is not rehab, right? You can't send people to prison and expect them to get any better. They need rehab. That's why these policies where they're going to, let's throw more and more people in prison. Let's just throw them all in prison. What they don't understand is that they're contradicting themselves because they want to cut down gangs, but prison's the biggest breeding ground for gangs. So you need places like that. That's what my parents do. When I moved back from after my father got in prison, I hated being poor. I hated being broke. I don't meet anyone who likes it. I hated not having nice things. For me, there's no accident. There's a massive increase in crime, as there's a massive increase in poor, desperate people. It's a direct correlation there. But I didn't want to go down the same path as my dad or my mum or my other uncle. I had another uncle, Uncle Lay, who's also changed now, but he was a mobster with the New Zealand chapter, and he was also a bank robber. But even in this room, we have all different specialties, right? My uncle specialised. He focused on armoured trucks, so it was funny, we always look forward to his Christmas presents, They're always good. One time, off topic, one time he came home. Remember back in the old days you needed coins to play spacey games? He came home one day and he threw a big bag of coins to me and my sister. Go play some spaces. And we were so happy. 2 little brown kids walking up Queen Street on our way to Yifans, big bag full of coins. Only problem was I still had ASB Bank on the bag, so it's allegedly. Hey. But, the thing is, we thought that was normal, and that's the problem. That's the problem. But I use where I was from as fuel. I studied hard, I passed School C, I passed sixth form. My grades in sixth form were good enough to get me to uni, so I went to uni. Only problem was, that's all I did. I went there. Did anyone else just go to uni? I went there and I discovered a bar called Shadows. Anyone else familiar with that place? I got lost there for a while. But, I thought my life, I was breaking the cycle, which is hard to do. I was proud. I was only the second person in my entire family to go to uni, so I was proud of myself. But my life just took a massive detour when my father, he just got tired of not being able to give us things. Who here has kids? We want to give our kids the best, right? And, my father, who just got tired of not being able to give us material things. Can I just let everybody know again, that material things don't mean nothing? Of course they're nice to have. Of course they're nice to have, but they don't mean anything, really. My father was driven to give us nice stuff. So he was a bank robber at the time. He was a courier driver, but now he wanted to make some more money. So he became a gardener. What do you think he was growing? Yeah, it wasn't tomatoes. It's funny, we had a hydroponic shop just down the road here on Norman Spencer Drive, Manuko. Had a hydroponic shop called Pro Hydro. And every now and then, a little old Pākehā lady will wander in the street. What's some good nutrients for tomatoes? So, well, fuck if I know, lady, but we only have 2 types of nutrients on our shelves. One's called Growzilla, and 8 weeks' time you change it to Budzilla. So I had 2 part-time jobs while I was at uni. I had one at a video shop in Eastridge Mall, and I had another part-time job as a security guard in one of my dad's warehouses. It was a warehouse, a massive hydroponic setup, Tidal Road, Mangere. And we weren't the type of security that called the police. We were there to stop people stealing from us, robbing us. That's what we were there. So we had a gun there. And again, it's crazy when I think about it now, but back then I thought it was normal. You can't just... It's funny. We had the cover for this business, this hydroponic operation. You can't just turn up and grow weed. You've got to pretend you're doing something legal. So our cover was a picnic table making business. We'd put a picnic table together, we'd disassemble that same one. We'd put it together, we'd disassemble. We'd put it together, we'd disassemble. We'd get pissed off we sold one, had to go buy more material, so it was like... But that was our, but I never forget the phone call from my mum one afternoon saying, don't go to work today, we've been raided. And that's the feeling I talk about to youth who think it's cool to be a gangster. So many of our youth, this gangster life is glamorized in the music videos, on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok. They're putting everything up there to lure young children into that life. That's why I get so frustrated when people make it out. Not just sports people, but business people, people who make it out and don't come back to show kids it's possible. Can we all yell it's possible? It's what? It's what? Yeah, it is. It is. And it's up to us to let them know it is. When that happened, I like to talk about everything crime takes, because what they see is gold, cars, bikes, girls, money, but they never show the other side, right? They never show the crying wives, the families torn apart. They never show that. Crime takes everything. When my dad went to prison, I went right off the rails. I quit uni, I quit my other job, and I ended up moving into a tinny house in Mangere. Do I need to explain what a tinny house is? Don't put your hands up. A tinny house is it's a drug house. It's named after, wrapping marijuana in tinfoil, a tinny house. I moved to this house selling drugs, doing drugs, just trying to be bad. You know, my reasons was, in boxing I played a character. Like, I wasn't a very good boxer. I tended to block with my head a lot, but I could talk it up. I could talk it up a lot, you know. And I played a character, but this was real life. I thought to myself, I have to be as bad as I can to build a reputation as quickly as I could, to let everybody know my uncle's gone back to prison, he's serving 15 years, my dad's back in prison, but I'm still here, don't come near my mum. I could still protect my family, I'm here. You know, so I was just out there being violent and just out there. You know, the Mongrel Mob Rogue chapter had a nightclub in Papatoetoe. Not too sure if anyone here is familiar with it, but they had a nightclub there. I got banned from that nightclub. How do you get banned from a mob nightclub? You know, I was out there. And like a lot of, youth these days, walking around with chips on both shoulders, right? Angry, violent, hating the world, hating the system, and hating ourselves. That was me. I came home one night, really drunk, high. I walked into the kitchen, I opened up the kitchen door, and I put a steak knife in my chest. Just here, just there. And I feel this lump here every morning. In every speech I deliver, and geez, I talk about this all the time, but it's just not easy. But I feel this as a reminder to myself how far I've come, and to show others it's possible. And just a reminder for all of us, it's not a sign of weakness to be vulnerable and ask for help. It's a sign of strength. You know, always remember that. It's not weak to be vulnerable and ask for help. It is a sign of strength. I wish I had. I just remember waking up in Middlemore Hospital. My mum's there, she's crying. I'm just consoling her, saying, Mum, it's okay, didn't mean it, just drunk. And then when they try to bring my dad in with 2 prison guards, don't want to see him. I'm still so angry with my father. And then when you do things like this, they send a psychiatrist around to evaluate you. Well, I did do some stuff at uni. I did psychology and social science and Psych 101. Got A's in both those papers at Auckland Uni. So I just told that lady what she wanted to hear, and I was out. Should it be that easy? You know, I remember speaking to the head of mental health at Middlemore Hospital, and some of his psychiatrists were there, and they asked me, Dave, is there anything we could have done to help you more? I said, yes, you could have been more thorough. You could have asked again. So I encourage everybody here, when you're checking in, and check in on your friends, your whānau, your loved ones. Don't just ask once. Ask again. Ask again, because you don't know what's happening behind the smile. You know, I remember speaking to a mother, and I was talking just like this, and she just broke down. And I went up to her after the talk, and I said, Sis, what, everything all right? She goes, I didn't ask again, and my son killed himself. So she has to live with that, not asking again. Just ask. You know, I remember getting out of hospital and sitting on the doorstep of this tinny house. Now, it's that doorstep. The crazy thing about this life is my late sister Vicky there, passed away of cancer, rest in peace. That house is 36 Plumley Creds. It's an old school mob house. It's now a Grace Foundation community home, you know. But living, you know, when you see that picture, it's just 2 young kids, no idea what they've been born into, right? Just innocent, no choice. And we're just up those doorsteps is the kitchen where I put the knife in. So I'm sitting on that very same doorstep, maybe 18 years later, and I'm just thinking, like a lot of us have had, right? Life's tough sometimes. We just question things. You know, is this it? Is this my life? Surely not. You know, it's the life of my children? Surely not. You know, I'm not religious, I don't go to church, but I have faith, believe in God. I stared at the sky and surely God, I'm meant for more than this. I didn't know what it was, but I knew it wasn't selling drugs, doing drugs, just being a fucking idiot. I knew I was meant for more than that. So, you know, I encourage my people, and I'm half Samoan from Manonotai, half Māori from Maniapoto. But I don't just mean Māori Pacifica. I mean anyone in the struggle of life looking up thinking it's impossible. Obesity, poverty, depression, suicide, all those things don't know colour, they affect all of us. Anyone going through that struggle, you're my people. And I encourage my people not to stay down and wait for the system to help us. If we're going to wait for the system, we'll be waiting all our lives. Get up and start. Ask for help. Be willing to accept help. From that doorstep, I got up, I worked. But at least I still had a good family that could give me a hand up. So many people, as we all know, so many people don't have anyone. They wouldn't even know what success looks like. They don't have any good friends. They don't have any good family that can help them. You know, I got up and I worked. From that doorstep, I ended up playing rugby league, North Sydney Bears, Manly, got contracted to them, played in France, played some rugby in Singapore. From that doorstep, I owned 2 supermarkets in Australia, earning shitloads of cash. You know, but man, I wish they taught basic money handling skills. I wish that was a part of the curriculum where it was compulsory, you know, to teach that budgeting, just real basic skills. Because, you know, when I had that supermarket, I worked my ass off. I turned it around from doing $60,000 turnover a week to $200,000 turnover a week. Can you imagine a young kid coming from that to all of a sudden having that kind of money coming in your account? And the things you will do. You know, when you see those really, like, you know, celebrities, like, remember MC Hammer? Remember? Oh, that guy. And you had all these millions, and then next minute bankrupt. And you think, how did that happen? Let me tell you how. You know, I was very generous. I sponsored every single sporting team in the town. You know, every single sporting team was called Big Dave, whatever it was. You know, I sponsored the rodeo. I was in an outback country town, this place, and I sponsored the rodeo. So when I sponsored the rodeo, I had custom R.M. Williams cowboy boots, had a cowboy hat. I was well over 200 kilos at this time. I had a big, you know those cowboy belt buckles? I had a big gold one with rubies and emeralds all around it with Big Dave written on it. I'd open my family car, which was a Range Rover. You couldn't fit any family in because it was filled with speakers. I'd open up my car door and a light would shine down on the ground saying, Big Dave. My slogan was, Big Dave, as Aussie as a Kiwi can be. You know, but I never forget, I lost it all. I walked into the accountants and I said, what next? And I pray no one has to go through that, but if you do, just understand it'll be okay. It'll be all right. You'll get through it. Just knuckle down again. If you've got there before, you can do it again. Don't be tempted to take a shortcut. I visit so many prisons and speak there, and most of the men there took shortcuts. What we all understand is shortcuts are actually the long way round, you know. But when I walked out of there, I wasn't prepared to struggle again, which is what we have to be. Just struggle again, work hard again, you can get there. But I wasn't prepared to do that. As a kid, I didn't see it. You know, when times got tough for my family, I didn't see them budget. I didn't see them cut off Sky or stop going out to eat. I saw them sell drugs and rob. That's what I saw as a kid. You know, right up to my early 20s. You know, we had a warehouse filled with cars, Lincolns, Cadillacs, Range Rovers. I was driving at that time a Mercedes limousine. Scream drug dealer, like this. It's like, look at me, I'm a drug dealer, you know. Driving around Mararewa with a Mercedes limousine, no license, you know, just. But in this warehouse, in one of these warehouses we had all these nice things my parents were giving us, my uncle was giving us. In one of those warehouses, my cousin hung herself. All our children need, all your children need is you. Your time, your presence, you being the best version of yourself. That's all they need. Of course, material things are nice, but it's not what they need, right? All my cousin wanted was my uncle's time. He gave her a car instead. 21 years old, she's no longer here. You know, I learned that lesson the hard way as well. You know, I dove headfirst into a life of crime over in Australia. I'm not going to go into it. I don't have time. And I see we're recording. I've never been caught, so no one's going to catch me at public speaking. But you know, I got up to no good in the name of my children. In the name of my children. You know, every gangster that I've known in the past and know today, they do things and they justify it for their children. It's all right, I'm doing it for my kids, which is total bullshit. It just takes you away from your children. You know, and I moved back here in February 2014 with not 1 cent in my pocket. Nothing. But this is where I understood what really matters in life. I didn't miss the money. I missed my children. Me and my partner, we broke up. Of course we did. I was an idiot. It was my fault. But I never forget when they were walking off. Her and my kids were walking off. 3 boys, they were walking off. My son, Tavita, he turned and he looked at me, and the look he gave me was a look, it just pierced my soul. And it still does get to me. A look where he knew he was going to see me in a while, you know? And it just broke my heart. Still does now. I just think, why did I do that to my children? But I didn't use it as an excuse to stop. I used that look as fuel for me to be better, to get my life back. You know, that's how I was. Remember, I was staying at my sister's house on my niece's bed, staring at the roof thinking, how did you stuff your life up so much, you idiot? You know, Mike King talks about this, having this overactive inner critic, and we all have it, right? This overactive inner critic that can be deafening sometimes. I was on that bed staring at the roof, and that voice was saying, you idiot, you had it all. Now look, you got nothing. You don't even have your kids. You should just kill yourself. And it would play over and over and over in me. This is how I silenced it. I got up, and you must silence it. I got up, I borrowed my sister's car, I borrowed some petrol money, which was humiliating for me. I drove to One Tree Hill, and I went for a walk around the summit. Remember back then you could drive up? Drove up there, and then I walked around the summit. 30 minutes, that's all I did. What I noticed was, while I was walking around the summit, I was no longer thinking about how crap my life was. All I was thinking about was, man, this is a steep hill. Why on earth did I choose this place? But at the end of it, I had the natural endorphins of exercise running through my body, so I felt a bit better. But the important thing was my brain had a chance to rest, so I could handle life a little bit more. I encourage everybody here, when you're going through tough times, get out and go for a walk. We're blessed here in Aotearoa, beautiful places. Go somewhere nice and go for a walk. I promise you, you'll feel better. If you team that up with a nice healthy meal, oh man, you're going to be feeling amazing, next level. You know, that's how I started, to losing 100 kilos and keeping most of it off. That's how it all started. I'm not going to go into the boxing because we don't have time. If you want to know more, buy my book. But I started BBM was because out of boxing. I was, you know, does anyone remember me from my boxing days? Oh, did you like me or not? Oh, thanks, brother. That's rare. That's rare. Thank you, bro. The whole boxing thing started was, I was an out there character. And my first ever boxing match was right here, but at the weigh-in, I jumped on the weigh-in and I was called the Brown Buttabean. I had to be really arrogant. That was my character. And I had to call out whatever area Joe Parker was fighting in. The first area he fought in that I was on was bloody South Auckland, so I had to call out all of South Auckland. I jump on the scale and it says error. So everyone did that. They laughed at me. And I said, I'm the toughest man in the country. Can nobody beat the mighty Brown Buttabean? Come at me, South Auckland. And everyone just went like, they put it online, they put it in the paper, they put it on the news, and people went nuts. Hey, bro, remember that? Yeah, just, thanks, bro. It did, it blew up. People were saying, who's this fat bastard saying he's the toughest man in South Auckland? There were signs around supporting my opponent, Otahu, driving around that people wanted to kill me. You know, and I was getting death threats. I'm going to shoot you on sight. You know, the worst one I ever got was, well, there's a few worse ones. You know, you're a disgrace to all your people. Humble yourself. When are we going to understand that humble's not being a doormat? You know, the worst one I ever got was, though, we're going to send you some rope to hang your family with. You know, while I was getting that, I was now living in a community home in Clendon on a mattress on the floor. I was living with a rapist and a robber just out of prison. That was my life. But I didn't use it as an excuse to stop, right? I used it as, I'll show you what I can do. Train hard, stop eating rubbish. You know, I won my first fight. I won my first 10 fights. And amongst all my fights, like my weight loss journey was being played out online, eh, bro? Every fight, Totoko. I'm going to bring it to all my talks. Every fight I'll be on Joseph Parker undercards on TV, so my weight loss journey has been played out on TV. So amongst all the hate mail I was now getting messages about, man, Dave, what's the secret? How are you losing all this weight? You know, my Pacifica people would say to me, Dave, are you sick? You know, and I say, here's a secret. Here's a secret. Stop eating rubbish, stop drinking rubbish, and go for a walk. That's the secret. People say, nah, it can't be that easy. I didn't say it was easy. I said it's that simple. What people were hoping I'd say is, take this pill, drink this shake, and stand on those machines that shake all about like that, you know? But so I started this group, Buttabean Motivation, online. That started with one person. That's the world's biggest boot camp there at Eden Park. Okay, we started our first boot camp. People see this, and they think, man, I want to get there, but just help one person. This started by helping one person. I'm here because I helped one person. You know, my first boot camp was helping my father-in-law's mate at Trust Stadium. My first boot camp in South Auckland was helping one person in a driveway in Papatoetoe to this. Never underestimate the power of helping one person. You know, even the tamariki that we're helping now, never underestimate the seeds that you're planting. You know, that will flourish. You know, and that was me. We started this, we moved into our first indoor gym in Manukau. Now, do not take any notes. I see people taking notes. Don't take any notes on my business model. It's very stressful, okay? This gym here costs $150,000 a year. I don't charge anyone 1 cent. In ulearn, $95,000 a year. I don't charge anyone 1 cent, okay? The business side of health will say, Dave, that's so radical. You know, like I've got free doctors for anyone with long-term health conditions in Manukau and ulearn through our From the Couch program that we partner with the PHO Total Healthcare. That program has now just been partnered with Tamaki Health to take that program throughout the country. The thing about that is because that's the funded program, so you just heard those two amounts I said. We got from the Ministry of Health 2 years ago, $200,000 a year. It doesn't even cover both those places, but we do it to serve and hope the government will catch up. That's the model, and that they are. So now things are starting to happen. That From the Couch will be going everywhere. It'll be funded so the trainers can still put food on their table, but then we can attach all the other services onto it. So that's like our Trojan horse, so to speak. You know, people would say to me, Dave, that's radical, doctors. The business side of health, because what I understand about once I got closer to the business side of health, because it is a business, we are data and money. But I'm saying we can save lives here, and we can save our taxpayers money, because by the time they present to hospital, it's almost too late. You know, but we can catch them early. I'm going to rush through this. Took it all. We started our food share down there. That's a social supermarket, giving back people their dignity of choice. It's all free. Finished with some journeys. Rob Campbell, I always like starting with Rob. It's great for diversity. He's lost 30 kilos. He's probably worked too well on Rob because he's now vegan and drives an electric vehicle. So, got Georgia, type 2 diabetic for 15 years. Met her when she was on a walking frame. She now works for me full time, no longer diabetic. Phil has lost 150 kilos. 150 kilos. So if you're sitting here thinking it's impossible, think again. Because it's possible. It's what? Yeah. Okay, last 4 tips. Start. Too many of us think we'll start tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. It's not guaranteed. Start today. Everyone I visited in hospitals, some of them never made it out. Mostly Māori Pacifica people I visited in hospital, most of them never make it out. They all had one thing in common. They would give absolutely anything to have a chance, an opportunity to go back in time and start. So while we're all here and we have this opportunity, don't waste it. Start today. The next thing, once you start, stay consistent. Being consistent is about understanding nobody's perfect here. Life sucks sometimes. You get knocked down, there's speed bumps, there's obstacles. But what do you do when you get knocked down? Get back up. What do you do when you get knocked down? What do you do when you get knocked down? That's it. Just get back up. I think about if I'd given up in 2014, I think about the thousands of children waking up today with no food, going to sleep with no food. I think about all the families that would not have beds to sleep on after the floods that I've given up. Success for all of us is only around the corner. We'll never know if we keep giving up. Third thing, be around good people. Very simple. You surround yourself with 5 idiots, what does that make you? The 6th one. Surround yourself with 5 people that are only there for you, not for what you could do for them. Surround yourself with people that are hungry. Hungry, not for KFC, hungry for success. I know what you mean, sis. Last thing, no excuses. This is the last point, no excuses. Easy to say, hard to live by. It's funny there with Phil. One morning we were training with Phil. He would have been about 270 kilos at the time. We're training outdoors. We didn't have a gym then. And it was raining in the morning. He said, Uso, he rang me, Uso, I'm just wondering, are we still training because it's raining outside? And I said, Uso, I just want to ask you a question. Do you still go KFC in the rain? So how do you live by that mantra of no excuses? The way you live by this mantra, and it's my last point, the way you live by this mantra is by having a strong why and living with a purpose. My why was to get my children back. I'd close my eyes and just imagine being at the airport with my arms out and having my kids run up to me, right, and embrace me. I have all my children back now, a new wife and new son. My why has been an example for them, but my why, the why to why and the why of BBM is our people. To show our people it's possible. It's what? It's what? It's up to us to show our tamariki and our rangatei that it's possible, that you can have absolutely anything that you ever wanted and that you deserve. The good life is for you too, and you don't have to sell drugs, do ram raids, rob banks or kill to get it. Start, stay consistent, be around good people and stop letting excuses get in your way. Thank you very much and God bless.
Teachers aren't used to that much swearing.
I try to tone it down a little bit.
Now all of you, if you could just get in the middle, we're gonna get a selfie.
Oh, cool.
Here, my friend. And I'll send this to you via social media. You all, no, don't get up. There we go. Oh, you know. There we go. You've got longer arms than I do.
It's up team. That means no excuses. 3, 2, 1.
Bye. Kia ora. Don't you run away
Okay.
just yet. How good. We've got a lovely koha for you. Ngāti Maniapoto, Ngāti Hāmoa,
A lot of vouchers to
tēnā koe.
KFC. just take the skin off.
Yeah. There's no KFC in there, I checked. What a way to start ulearn. So many things. There were so many questions coming in. We are going to, for me, it felt more important to let you finish having your kōrero than ask the question. So I'm going to apologise to you if you've sent a question and we don't get time to do it. It was just the messages were too good. I am so pleased you're in front of these people who are in front of our kids. They need to hear your story. We need to know that there are many that can inspire and get to another path. I want to thank you so much for your generosity, your honesty, your openness to share what is a very personal story. You really are an inspiration, Ehua. You genuinely, I'm going to start tomorrow. I should not have said that in front of everyone, actually. I'm going to start on Monday, is what I meant to say. Far out, I forgot how many people were listening. Monday. Ehua, there was one thing there were so many things that resonated. One thing that I will walk away with, if you can help, do help. These people here are the helpers of the world.
Yep.
These are the people that get out of bed every morning to help our tamariki. On behalf of them, I thank you. I thank you for helping future Daves into the future. These are the helpers.
Yeah, and you know, that's that way of thinking as well. I know there's government people here and funders. I mean, that's how you should think to all the government and the bureaucrats here going back to Parliament and all these things. If you can help, you should. You see all these organisations here, you can see this organisation here doing this amazing mahi. Support it.
Absolutely.
It's quite simple.
Absolutely. I also want to reiterate the importance, and I know that you know this, the importance more than ever before to vote and to get everybody you know to vote. If you have to drive around the neighbourhood and put people in your car and drive them, that's how you can help. And so I think this is, you've just inspired us. I want to thank you so much for starting this conference with such heart, such aroha, such generosity. Tēnā koe, Dave Letele.
Thank you, team. God bless.
Yeah. As I said, I apologise that we didn't get to your questions, but I really did want to let Dave finish his kōrero today.